Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and back in my humble abodes here, I call it the SCU Studios, the same that my buddy, a good one, Zach Celadonia, is also hailing from. It's good to have you back, Zach, and we have some things that we haven't been able to discuss or talk about, but we'll kind of wrap that into a bow with a look into, I guess, preview for a preseason game. Yeah, it's so hard to preview them. So, but first of all, man, what's going on?
We're good at what we do, so we can make it happen.
Yeah, we're the best. We're the best around. But yeah, I know you were just at camp, right? You were just out of training camp, so you got to see some things, eyes on the ground, and we both felt that with this, the preseason, first preseason game, a lot of people sat. This might be more of a dress rehearsal. It's a home game. Buffalo Bills. I can't see anybody that's been on this roster the last couple of years having to wanting to play the Buffalo Bills in any capacity. So you might get a little intensity out there. It might be nice. They might be playing a few decent players because they got the quick turnaround from Saturday to next Thursday with the Atlanta Falcons. So for all intents and purposes, I think we'll see the starters maybe for a quarter or less to start this game, and then you'll start to see some of the other players that we're going to bring up and discuss based on observations in the games, upcoming game, who needs to do what, or who's on the bubble of making this 53-man roster. It's going to be pared down in like less than 2 weeks. We're going to have like an official roster, and then we're going to have a depth chart that's going to come out like a week before that September 10th kickoff with the San Francisco 49ers. It's on, baby. And then we won't be able to go swimming anymore. It's like, it's bittersweet, man. It's a bittersweet end of summer.
I heard someone say recently that after the 4th of July, summer's just all downhill. And at the time, I thought that's a really depressing way to look at it, but it's so true. Ever since I heard that this year, I'm going to remember that forever because it feels like that's actually what happens, that after the 4th of July, there's just less to do. Maybe it's just life of being an adult, because when you're a kid, every day in summertime, it's like you can do something. You can figure out something to do with your friends, go outside, get dirty, play some sports, like go to the pool. Like you can do something with your friends as a kid almost every day in the summer. And as you get older, it becomes more like event-based. So whereas summer has kind of lost its shine as I've grown older, it's just made football season seem that much more sexy. Because as summer comes to conclusion, we got football around the corner here, and I can't wait. It's the one thing that I'm a warm weather guy, and I would prefer it be summertime all year round. Everybody always tells me, oh, dude, you wouldn't like that if you lived in California. You got to appreciate the seasons. No, I know what I would like. I'm me. So I know that I would want it to be sunny and warm every day. Yeah, it can rain every once in a while for the crops. But I have no problem with it being summertime every day. So the fact that I am ready for it to be over should speak 1,000 words, because I just want football to get here. Real football. I've been loving the preseason. How can you not, as a Steeler fan, right? After the first week, but at the same time, I'm ready for real football to get here, because at this point, I mean, I've seen enough. I'm ready for week 1.
Yeah, I'm here. These preseason games were rough. I'm watching replays. The Ravens one was just on too, and there's a good joke. I'm in some of these trash talk groups too, and they're like, wow, why would the Ravens risk playing their Pro Bowl quarterback in one of these preseason games? Of course, they mean Tyler Huntley. So I thought it was pretty funny.
That's like the dumbest dream they're chasing ever with this undefeated preseason record. Who cares? It like goes off on Twitter and stuff, or X, and it gets you a lot of likes, and like it's a fun thing to talk about in the preseason, but who cares? Like, oh, well, that translates to the regular season. Clearly not, because they haven't won a Super Bowl since 2012.
Oh no, Cleveland was like undefeated that year, I think, in the preseason, that they had the 0-16 parade at the end of the regular season. So, but
I remember it well.
Yeah, let's jump into this. We're gonna try and keep this. There's things to talk about, and I was going to I was actually going to bring back the topics bar. We'll see if I can remember that this thing even exists. But we've got our position breakdowns.
Heyo,
Yay!
there she blows.
Somewhat organized here. We won't, but if it's short and sweet.
See,
and
those of you
to
that aren't on the
the
YouTube,
point.
you're missing out on this kind of action right now.
Yeah, it's exciting times. But look, it's already gone. So, but we're gonna jump in to quarterbacks at the bottom. Actually, you know what? I'll bring it back for a quick second. At the bottom, we've been doing our worst takes of the week whenever we get on, and I might have to throw mine in here right now because it has to deal with the quarterbacks. There's nothing going on with the quarterbacks. The worst take actually with the quarterbacks right now is that somebody who has media access actually can go to the locker room and writes for a rather large site. I always talk about like your clickbait things. And I know before you were like, oh, I was nitpicking with stats and stuff. And it's like, you always have to be careful who's putting what out there as far as like just trying to get attention to themselves. You know what I mean? Yeah, creating stories. And one of those stories that's just been created that's one of the worst takes of the week is the quarterback competition going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. No, it's not 2022 preseason all over again where you had the fake three-way whatever where you know Kenny's eventually going to be the starter at some point. They're talking about the backup quarterbacks.
Did you see Chris Oladokun this weekend, though? Did you see Chris Oladokun?
I missed it.
He had like a 30-yard run for the Chiefs.
Wow. Yay. All right.
Hey, he's got a ring. He's got a ring.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if I was like the towel boy, I would get a ring too. So some of these guys, Lev Bell got a ring.
Are you rooting against the young man?
I'm not really rooting against him unless I don't want them to win the Super Bowl again. If he's like there, that's got to be the Steelers. And in fact, they're getting a little bit of love. I forgot who just put that out there. It was which McCourty twins, the one on NFL Network. He was giving the Steelers a little bit of love.
Jason. Yeah,
Jason was giving Steelers some like a little bit of Super Bowl love. Adam Rank, on the other hand, was out of his mind. He gave the Browns like a 6-win season. And he started going through, and he had them going 3-1 against the Steelers and Ravens, and then they're unable to beat like the Texans, the Bears, Jaguars. That might actually be true, but there was somebody else like in that mix. And I'm like,
meanwhile, the last time we met the Browns, we won.
Yeah, I don't get like I could even like sympathize with splitting if you're going to split it. Right. And Brian and I do this every year. We go through the entire schedules for all the AFC North and then figure out where everyone's going to be. And we're pretty on the money last year. So we're going to be doing that live at some point, but it's going to be after the preseason. We've determined we're going to wait, see who sticks around here, and we'll jump back on this topic. But yeah, that was like my worst take. I'm probably already off the quarterback subject. There isn't anything to talk about with it. So there's no competition. Just because Mason threw one nice bomb to Calvin Austin, which we knew Mason's capable of doing that. And you know, I'm a Mason stan over here, but they extended Mitch Trubisky for what? Like an extra 2 years or whatever, and spread out the money. They gave him new money. That guy's not going anywhere. Mason has a 1-year deal. There's no competition there. The contracts tell you that. If anything, it'll be next year. Maybe they bring Mason back, and then maybe it's a competition because Mitch stunk up the joint. But just because he stunk it up, throwing 2 of 4 or whatever he did for a 0 rating in this first preseason game, and I was hard on him. Like, this dude, he doesn't anticipate throwing the ball. There's still things I don't like about him. But as far as a veteran quarterback, like, he's Charlie Batch 2.0. He's not going anywhere. He has like 60 starts and playoff experience in the NFL. Mason doesn't have that. So, end of story. There's no competition.
Yeah, I don't think there is either. I mean, I'm as surprised as anyone that Mitch has accepted and leaned into this role that he has now as the backup quarterback of the Steelers, because I really thought that when they signed him to his deal before they drafted Kenny Pickett, and he lost his job from the start. I mean, he never should have been starting from week 1. And the fact that he got yanked when he did, there's a very real possibility out there that Mitch feels slighted from all of those events. So the fact that he was able to kind of like look himself in the mirror and be like, you know what, I have a good situation going on here. I'm the backup quarterback for one of the most storied franchises in all of sports. And let's face it, Steelers fans love the backup quarterback. We're always supporting the guy, maybe not QB3 or the experiment rookie, but if you're the backup quarterback, Steeler fans love you. We always believe that you got this, man. It's Charlie Batch. I mean, Byron Leftwich, now Mitch. And what's kind of funny about that is Byron Leftwich was also a top 10 draft pick, top 5, and Mitch top 5 pick. They are both now in the not end of their career. Leftwich was the end of his career, but Mitch is still kind of like he's got years left. But they both ended up here as backups, and I think Mitch just realized, like, dude, I got a good life. Like, this is a cheat code to life. You're in the NFL, you're making a lot of money, and you're snap away from getting live action. And you're young enough too that if you ever wanted to, if you ever got that itch again, he could probably sign somewhere and try to compete for a starting job with like another team that drafts a bridge quarterback. But for right now, he's living good. He put roots down here, contract extension. He's a really good locker room guy from what I understand and what I've read. So I really actually respect all of the moves Mitch Trubisky has made since really losing his job. It's been professionalism to a T. And the Mason thing, it's like, yeah, we all knew he could throw deep. That was a good part of his game. And coming from you, like you said, you're a big Mason guy. And I even started to like Mason or appreciate him more during his like final stand last year as the QB3. And when that rule in the NFL passed that we could have a third quarterback and have it like not affect the inactive and active numbers, the first thing I thought of was bring Mason back, dude, because if we have a third quarterback emergency situation like the NFC Championship game, Mason Rudolph is the guy that would know the offense and be able to run it to close to the fullest extent. So he's a very clear defined role here. So does Mitch. I felt like this was inevitable because I saw Mitch struggling in certain parts of camp, and then he comes out in the preseason game, throws a pick, Cody White should have caught the ball. And so he throws a pick. Mason throws a great pass to Calvin Austin for the touchdown. He has better stats, but the Steelers know the pecking order of the quarterback. There's going to be days where Mason puts on a show. There's going to be days where Mitch looks like 2018 Mitch and is doing well and like has the offense moving. But there's no competition there at all.
Yeah, at all. Charlie Batch, by the way, 46 starts, 48 games for Detroit Lions, 4 years, as the 60th overall pick, second round of the 1998 NFL draft before coming to Pittsburgh. Byron Leftwich, 4 years plus another single year in Atlanta, 4 years in Jacksonville, 44 starts, 46 games, and then another 2 starts out of 3 games with the
when was
Falcons.
He picked? What pick was he picked?
7th overall in the 2003 draft. So you're right on the money. This is, even though, let me see, when did Byron first come in? Yeah, that would have been Mike Tomlin, 2008. He left for 1 year and then came back and played in 2010. Got hurt 2011 and then 2012. That's how Charlie Batch kind of extended his career. I think at one point, Mike Tomlin was kind of like, I need to move on from Charlie Batch, but I mean, Charlie was what he was. I know a lot of people love him, but he really no better than Mitch Trubisky. That's it's for a whole other story for a whole other day. It's the reason why these guys ended up being backups over the course of their career. Mike Vick also falls into this category, although a lot more accomplished by that time and older by the time he comes around to the Steelers. These guys were, Byron Leftwich was 28 and Charlie Batch was 29. Maybe even 28. He may have come in 2002 and then just didn't get to play. The way I'm looking at this, last year was 2001 for Charlie Batch with Detroit Lions. Anyways, there's no controversy there. There's no competition. That's just people trying to drum up some horse manure in order to get some clicks. And anybody who's not paying attention to that or hasn't been around camp or even just watching the games or the way the organization operates, okay. Hopefully you could sniff that out. At least they could, everyone just kind of reads the headlines. That's a problem too. Running backs, I mean, there isn't a whole lot going on here. I don't feel that there's any real competition other than Anthony McFarland Jr. getting on this roster. Now, I just recently put out on SteelCityUnderground.com a new 53-man projection, and I have McFarland back in. But he had a good first game last preseason and then ended up on the practice squad. They need some guys to be able to play special teams, like return type role. I don't think you're gonna jeopardize having Jaylen Warren doing that. Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, they're using him as a returner. I saw.
Yeah. They're not gonna have I don't even know if Calvin Austin would be on kick return duties. He's listed number 1 on the depth chart. But they had Jordan Byrd doing that during this preseason game. So those are some items you need to look at as you go into this second preseason game. Is how many carries now. What did they do with McFarland? He had a very nice touchdown run there in his first game, but we saw last year in games 2 and 3 not used as much. But he's really the guy that's on the bubble here I don't even want to say hot seat because he's already been on and off the roster transaction wise, but definitely a bubble guy for sure.
Yeah, I love what I've been seeing from McFarland. He's realizing his potential of what we thought he could be coming out of Maryland a couple years back. But yeah, I feel like my heartbroken self from last year is trying to tell me from the past, being like, dude, last year he was having a good camp and he had a good preseason and he still got cut. The difference of this year is he's the clear RB3. There's really no competition there for RB3. McFarland's getting reps with the first team. Kenny likes throwing it to him. He's got a different dimension to his game that Najee and Warren don't have, i.e., he runs like in the low 4.4s. He has breakaway, big play speed. And it just seems like he's kind of in his own, like, no man's land with the RB3 spot because Najee and Warren are guaranteed locks. Well, most teams keep 3 running backs, not just 2. And McFarland is so clearly far and away ahead of the other undrafted dudes and guys. I feel like they sign a new running back every other day from a different school because they're just churning in camp bodies right now. But McFarland, unless they only want to keep 2 running backs and make Connor Hayward like the third quote unquote running back, I think McFarland is safe for the first time in his whole career since getting drafted, because his rookie getting cut as a 4th round pick is rare. But I finally feel like McFarland is as safe as he can be as an RB3.
Yeah, you aren't lying. The transaction wire, August 1st, the Steelers signed Greg Bell and John Lovett, released Jason Huntley, and then just yesterday they released Lovett and signed Xavier Valade, who was just released. Was it the Texans? Like, nobody wanted to pick this dude up. He had like 150K like guarantee or something as an undrafted.
They gave him the bag.
Yeah, nobody wanted to just pick him up off of waivers, so he became a free agent and comes to the Steelers. I mean, maybe a practice squad candidate. I was looking at that and however many slots that are there, but I do think that McFarland can stick, and it'll be because of a few of the other things we're going to talk about here as far as hot seat guys and whatnot. Let's see. We've got, throw the guys that catch the ball in together here. This becomes tough because we're talking about tight ends. We got to throw in maybe some other guys like Connor Hayward, who I'm going to put into there since we didn't talk about him as a running back, but Connor Hayward has a defined role in this offense entirely. They seem to have things just schemed up for him, especially. Now the question becomes, how many receivers and tight ends do you keep? Does that allow you to keep an extra spot open on the running back depth chart? Last year it would have been Benny Snell because Jalen Warren ended up making the team, and then it was Jalen Warren the backup? Is he RB2? Is he RB3? And Snell ended up being the 3 for the most part. They also had Derek Watt and Connor Hayward last year. They also kept 6 wide receivers. So this stuff's all like all over the map. I'm trying to think if they even had like a tight end 3. I don't think that they did. I think
last year.
Yeah, it was just on the initial.
Connor Hayward.
Yeah, it was just Connor Hayward. But now you've got Pat Freiermuth, Zach Gentry, Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward. Now you have 4, but you don't have a fullback. Or do you have a fullback with Kendrick Green? We'll talk about Kendrick Green in a minute when we get to offensive line. But I'm looking at that with the tight ends. I think I'm settled, Zach, on wide receivers. I think there's only going to be 5. One of the poster childs I had, for our graphic for the show was Hakeem Butler. He's on the way outside looking in at this point. Gunnar Olszewski, he lost like that top return type deal. Jordan Byrd could supersede him, but Jordan Byrd probably projects to be more of a practice squad guy, right? So,
Definitely.
So your 5 got to be. You got 4 that are definitely locks. You've got Deontay, you've got George Pickens, you've got Allen Robinson, you got Calvin Austin, who's definitely flashing. Some people, year 2, we knew this. People who listen to us know this information, but there are people who don't pay attention.
That's expected.
It should be. We're the smartest people that do this thing or whatever. So anyway.
I think so.
Yeah. Miles Boykin's the 5th one because of special teams. I don't see anybody else that's going to be able to replicate what he can do. And that's exactly what you said with McFarland too. It's like variety is the spice of life. Versatility is the best ability for a lot of these guys. And that's going to determine whether there's another spot open here for an extra tight end or even a fullback for that matter.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers are, this is one of the toughest predictions of a 53-man roster that I have experienced, and we're only one preseason game into this thing. And if you were to keep 5 receivers, the 4 tight ends, and 3 running backs, that's 12 guys right there. That's 12 spots right there. And you figure you got 5 starting linemen, right? So that's 17. You figure the line has about 3 to 4 backups. So 3 backups puts you at like 21, 4 puts you at like 23. So you're hovering right around half of the roster right there as far as a 53-man roster if you're trying to make sense of keeping 5 receivers or 6. I think when you map it all out like that, there is room for a 6th, but the Steelers have to be comfortable with only signing back 4 backup offensive linemen, if not less, because in addition to the backup offensive linemen, you have 3 quarterbacks that are going to make the team. So you're literally like right on half there, 25 to 28. It's possible for them to keep 6, but the idea of them keeping a fullback, I think that's Connor Hayward, because there's no fullback on the roster. It's just a fullback not besides. Kendrick Green takes snaps, but he's not a primary fullback. Yeah. Connor Hayward's more of like a super athlete. So I don't think there will be a clear defined fullback. They may list Connor Hayward as it, but he's going to do other things. So there's room for a 6th receiver, but here's where it gets a little hairy. The defense has more depth, has a bigger depth traffic jam than the offense does, if you can believe it. I think so, because you've got the secondary with a lot of guys fighting for a spot. You've got the linebacker room with a lot of guys fighting for a spot. The defensive line, that's all 3 levels. So there's nowhere else on the defense
yes, it is.
for people to be fighting for spots. But the defense is a little bit more depth heavy, I should say. So the Steelers could think, well, let's sacrifice a 5th receiver spot and keep that extra defensive lineman or that extra safety, because Boykin, I think, makes sense to keep as the 5th receiver, because you want to make a living on special teams if you're that far down on the depth chart, which Boykin has done. He's done a good job. He's really good on punt team as a gunner, making tackles on kickoff as well. And I apologize, I don't watch his blocking very well, but like he does what they ask him to do well. And coaches value that more than the average fan, the average podcaster. And then Gunner, he had his bad moments last year, but I feel like if the Steelers were that pissed at him, they could have cut him already for his mistakes last year. And also, Kenny is just on the record as really liking him. And I could be falling for the Big Ben, Ryan Switzer thing again, where like it's just the quarterback saying nice things, but he goes out of his way to bring up how consistent Gunner is and how reliable he is. So I think it is a true two dogs, one bone scenario between those two for the different things that they offer, because I think Gunner's days as the starting returner are over. Yeah. It's more so if he can prove himself as an option for Kenny on offense. The 4 tight ends I think are safe. There's been talk out there that, are you sure Gentry or Connor Hayward are safe? I'll go on record as saying I'd be shocked if either one of them got cut. It could happen. There's always a couple guys that you're like, I didn't see that coming. Some stuff will get you to jump out of your chair in preseason, but I feel like all 4 guys are safe. And the running back room gets 3. So what did you ask me again?
I don't know. No, you're covering it. You're doing the math. You're all good, man. I guess what I would throw out there is that I'm starting to feel whether Zach Gentry is safe. And the reason 1-year contract, they bring him back. It took a while to re-sign him. I think that was because they felt, are we going to be able to draft somebody new? And now they got Darnell Washington, but we know that Pat Freiermuth has some concussion history. So do you really feel comfortable with just having a rookie and that's it? And then Connor Hayward.
Or up, dude, if they cut Zach Gentry. Number one, we don't have a lot of Zachs representing the NFL. There's like a handful of us. Zach Martin, nice contract, dude. Shout out, way to represent. But I want Zach Gentry to stay. He's a really great blocker. He offers more in the passing game than you would think. I just saw a highlight the other day of week 1 last year, randomly of the Bengals game. He caught like a 30-yard screen. Like he makes his presence known on offense, mainly for blocking, but he's a reliable pair of hands. And at the end of the day, the Steelers, remember when they drafted him, people were like, dude, they drafted this really skinny, like tall former quarterback from Michigan. This guy should have been like an undrafted guy or a 5th-round pick. The Steelers took a chance on him, and he didn't end up being tight end 1. He ended up being Pat Freiermuth, but he developed into a really good upper end, I would even venture to say, tight end 2. And you put in the time and the work to develop him. I'm pretty sure he was on practice squad as a rookie, and he's made the 53 every year since, I think. And there's a clear difference in his game if you look at the rookie preseason that he had and where he's at now. And if you're going to put in that work and that time and that effort, keep the guy around, especially because I just did the math, and they can make it happen if they want to. So
Yeah.
I would be surprised if he was a cut for sure.
Yeah, totally.
And there's grilling and chilling.
Yeah, I know. Then they break that up. Well, it's like the bittersweet part of that, but maybe the kiss of death is they just have Mike Tomlin on that. So it was like, let's get this episode out of the way because this guy might not be here for very much longer.
Right. All the important people. Kenny was on there. Pickens was on there.
Yeah, all the important people. Well, we got to go with the sexy ones here, the offensive line, and this is going to throw off. Like we were mentioning that they could keep a fullback and an H-back sometimes, so there might be two spots for that. So Kendrick Green's name immediately comes to mind as far as creating a spot. But to do that, they probably have to cut or move either Spencer Anderson or Kevin Dotson. I feel like Kevin Dotson could be somebody. Can they get like a 6th or 7th rounder conditionally or whatever from somebody? He's in the last year of his contract. This is a guy with that, but you should also value him because he's got starting NFL experience. But you signed Nate Herbig as well. You drafted Spencer Anderson, who's been playing some center. And in order for Kevin Green, oh, rest in peace, brother. Kendrick Green, we were rooting for him. And then he gets in that game and like a bonehead, I think he let it slip. He had the bad snap. He had the holding penalty. He's going to have to do more than just play fullback, I think, exclusively to make this roster. Derek Watt had to be able to be a special teams ace to also be a fullback. That was just his defined kind of position. And Connor Hayward, they throw him all over the place, but he's not really, I don't know, is Connor really the prototype not really a tight end prototype? You know what I mean? So when you look at the top of Connor's 6 foot 230. Yeah. I mean, that's okay. I got to see what,
Derek Watt was.
Yeah, I got to see what Derek Watt was actually listed at. Not Derek Carr, Derek Watt. Oh, the Carr brothers. Big fan.
6'1", 245.
234. Yeah, 6'2", 234 is what he was listed at. So, yeah, I guess just a fullback. He's not really he's a guy that can catch the ball. He can play ball. We know that much. So you got your top 6 really. Because you got Mason Cole, you got the 2 guards, you got Sumalo, you've got James Daniels, then you've got Chuks Okorafor, then you got Dan Moore Jr. and Broderick Jones, of which some of the beat writers are really which one of these guys starts, but there's 6 spots already. We just mentioned Dotson, Green, Spencer Anderson, Herbig. That's
the Raven Clark.
That's 10. The Raven's out. I mean, I'm not even going to count.
I was kidding with the Raven Clark.
Quote, nevermore. That's 10. That's 10 dudes.
The Raven Clark. But yeah, I mean, your name's LaRaven. You're trying to make the Steelers.
That's not going to work. But I mean, that's 10 dudes.
Yeah.
Without LaRaven, that would be 11 dudes. So I just don't. They'll keep 8 or 9, and in order to keep Kendrick Green could still be on the chopping block unless they get some, because Dotson is going to at least be either the top guard or the second guard. Like one of these guys isn't getting a helmet on game day usually. And anybody else that they have, maybe Spencer Anderson's somebody that they just cut and put on the practice squad and could call up on game days. But they have to have
Spencer Anderson's the one that's been kind of like rising in the ashes, I feel like, in the midst of Kendrick Green's failures. Because, yeah, I also was captivated by the fullback story, but when it came down to game time against the Buccaneers, he looked awful at center. And the fullback thing, he's not going to make the team as just the fullback. He has to be good at offensive line as well, which he's not. So he's not going to make it as just a fullback. It's not really like me to be a Debbie Downer. I was all for the Kendrick Green redemption story, but it's not happening. And Kevin Dotson, yeah, great trade candidate because he's got starting experience. He's still, like, when he was drafted, there were takes out there that he should have been drafted higher. He's got good athleticism. They could try to get something for him. I think that you've got your 6 linemen because you're including the 1 tackle of the 3 who doesn't start, whether that's Dan Moore, Chuks, or Broderick Jones. So you got 6 linemen right there. Herbig makes 7. Spencer Anderson makes 8. I'm good there because this roster, as I alluded to, there's so many battles, receiver, tight end, secondary, linebacker, defensive line, where you could afford to use that roster spot way more. Because I'll be honest with you, if you're through your next 3 backup linemen, regardless of position, you're on your 4th guy, you got problems. You're pretty much in trouble regardless, and you got to make moves otherwise to get somebody else in there. So no need keeping a guy like LaRaven Clark or whoever else they would deem worthy of that 9th spot. I really think now that we've talked through it, going with 8 linemen may be the call here because it just makes sense from a number standpoint when you look at the rest of the roster and all these other tight battles.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember on game day in order to
I noticed Spencer Anderson, by the way, was taking his first snaps with second team the other day in camp. So they're trying to get him up to speed on being backup center.
Yeah, in order to call up the other 2 players from the game day roster, and it says you have to have a minimum of 8 offensive linemen on your 53. So it's
you got to have a minimum of a 2.0 GPA to graduate high school, brother. That's how I'm here right now.
So they're definitely going to do that because then they could manipulate the roster and add those other 2 bodies, whether or not they're active or play or not. But that means you don't have to do as many transaction things. You get to protect guys. I really do like the thought of having more people active on game days, the way they have the practice squad set up and stuff like that. But Kendrick Green, once again, on the outside looking in, unless there's a move or a trade, and who knows, like he's one of these guys that could just make the bottom of the roster and then all of a sudden somebody else cuts someone that they liked in the draft process or they played against in the preseason. They said, hey, that kid wasn't too bad. So they end up
backup center.
Yeah,
could
they
be that
jump
spot
all over
for the Steelers.
Yeah, it would appear that way. They've been trying to keep a couple of different. They've been trying Anderson. They tried Green. They had McCollum out there, from what I heard today. So and
can I just say too, the whole inactive active thing is dumb as hell. Why are you allowed to have all 53 guys, but you have to sit 6 or 7 or whatever?
Okay, I could explain this. This is
Let me hear it. Lay it on me.
Yeah, this one, it'll make sense to you when you think of a competitive balance of healthy bodies that are available for a game. So if you have 53 players on your roster, but 3 are hurt and can't play, or let's say Kenny's in concussion protocol, knock on wood that doesn't happen. You're now down to 50, but the other team's completely 100% healthy. They have 3 other guys they can kind of put in. This is kind of the buffer for not injured reserve, but dudes that are kind of like healing up. So they usually have like, what is it, 6 different spots that are inactives for game day. Does that sound right? 6? Do I have it right?
6 or 7.
Yeah,
counterpoint. They could just let the team activate practice squad guys to fill the spots of injured guys.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that.
They have all the power. I understand what you're saying because I know they don't want to just like, spend billions of dollars every year. But like, I totally like get that. I'm just saying that's always been funny to me. They're like, yeah, 53 guys make the team, but 6 of you don't get to play.
Yeah, it's 46. 46 is the active. I don't know why I was drawing a blank.
7 inactive.
Yeah, 7 inactives. So yeah, if somebody gets hurt and they're going to miss 2 weeks, it just means that like, you know, you're not down like a wide receiver and then the other team has like an extra wide receiver.
I got you. So now the rule is Mason's allowed to dress and it doesn't count towards against the 46.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct. But he can only come in if the other 2 cannot, or like kind of ruled out, can't return type deal too, from what I understand. That one's still a little new. But yeah, I like it. I like the way that's been changed. And, you know, it's now they can have 47 or 48 active game day players because you're assuming those other 2 practice squad guys are in fact healthy. So here, let's jump over to defensive line because we've got a lot to cover and not so much time to cover it. But this is another very top-heavy spot on the roster.
I can keep it quick.
There we go.
Go to me. No worries.
Go do it. Oh, yeah. What do we got?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I think that with the defensive line spot, it's one of the spots I alluded to that you make sacrifices on the offensive side to keep the depth that you have, because having a loaded front 7 is the formula for a championship. Nobody loves flashy offense more than me. Flash. It's right there in the name. But if you have a loaded front 7 and a good defensive line and continuous guys able to rush the passer and stuff the run, that is how you win a championship. Andy Weidl coming from the Philadelphia Eagles. It's no coincidence they've been like consistently a good team since like 2016-ish, because that is when they, out of nowhere, have had like a continuous, endless rotation of their front 7. Guys who are elite and then guys who come in who are still really good. And with the Steelers defensive line, you obviously are keeping Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, and Keanu Benton, the 2nd-round pick. But behind that, you have really good depth that it's hard to pick a guy that you want to sacrifice, because Montravius Adams has starting experience. The Steelers brought him back and gave him a deal, and he did well in his opportunities the past 2 seasons. But you got guys like Isaiah Loudermilk as well, and Brendan Fayeko, who Isaiah Loudermilk being a former draft pick they traded up for, he's finally, from what I gather and what I hear at camp, rounding into a form where he may be able to give you starting snaps, and not just due to injury. He was in with the ones today during 7-on-7. So Loudermilk is coming on. And
Yeah,
Brendan
Loudermilk really
Fiecko,
is.
from what I've heard, the free agent from the Chargers, very under the radar signing. But from what I've heard from beat reporters and reading up on the camp reports, he's immovable in the middle. Great run stuffer. So they have all these bodies in the middle there that I feel like if they were to sacrifice a guy there, and this may come off as like a hot take, but I think Montravius Adams may be the least safe, just because Loudermilk is developing at a rate now and showing potential that you hope to see. Fiecko as well. Benton's safe. Who are you going to cut in that room? And I think Adams is worthy of a spot, but that's the point that I'm making, that if they were to cut a guy in that room that has been doing well in camp, it's hard to find a name that you can justify. It's just that Adams is like the older of the bunch. That isn't
Yeah.
Cam Hayward or Ogunjobi. You kind of know what Adams is, whereas these other guys can kind of grow to become more. And I think that it just makes the most sense for them to try to keep all those bodies. Anyone behind them, I can't speak for them. I don't think anybody really behind them is safe to any type of extent. I feel like I may be forgetting somebody, but I think they're
yeah, let me jump in on that. The Armon Watts is also one of the guys they brought in, along with drafting Benton and signing Fehoko.
But Watts was signed around
guys.
the same time as Fehoko.
Yeah, you've got 3 guys that were brought in that aren't Montravius Adams, and I'm struggling with this because Adams has a good day, then he doesn't, and he's had like some of the more first team reps. He's on a hot seat. He was an undrafted guy plucked from a practice squad with the New Orleans Saints in the middle of like a season like 2 years ago that stuck on last year, and now they're
I think he was like a 4th round pick actually.
Was he really? But he was a practice
he just
squad
never
guy.
developed.
Yeah, you might be right. Hold on a second. I just know he was a practice squad guy.
Maybe 3rd round.
Mind blown. 2017, 3rd round. Are we talking about the same dude?
3rd
yeah.
round.
Pittsburgh Steelers, 93 overall. He was a top 100 pick. But yeah, he's bounced around. He was with Green Bay primarily until his rookie deal was up, and then was on the Saints practice squad. That's mind blown there. So, man, Fajoko's like the one that has like the least. Obviously, Benton hasn't played yet, but Benton's a dude. I think Benton, I don't know, you play him as a nose tackle, or is he like with Leal and they kind of spell Hayward and Ogunjobi? Like,
I think just think Javon Hargrave, where he's going to be the starter at nose eventually here this year, if not right away, and they'll just move him around accordingly.
Yeah, and I only have like room on the list for like 7 guys, so it depends on when we're going to get to these linebackers. Right now, they've kept 8, they've kept 9, they've kept 10 linebackers. This is the lifeblood of the team, and there's a lot of dudes out there, and I've got some hot seat people. I mean, it's obviously not TJ Watt. TJ Watt, okay, let's go through like some numbers real quick. You got TJ Watt, you got Alex Highsmith, you've got Marcus Golden, and you got Nick Herbig. Those 4, you're good. Then you've got the inside linebackers in the same spots. We may not necessarily agree here, but I think Cole Holcomb, Landon Roberts, Quan Alexander. So you're up to 8. And then Mark Robinson, right? Or Mark Robinson makes 8. Yeah.
Mark Robinson makes 8. Yeah.
So you've got some other names here. If they keep 9, who's the other guy? Tanner Muse hasn't really impressed me. Nick Kwiatkowski, he's going to be just special teams guy probably, but they need somebody to play those special teams.
Ironically, Kwiatkowski's looked better on the defensive unit against Tampa Bay than Tanner Muse, and I thought Tanner Muse would stick out more as a special teams guy because of his speed. You know, he ran a 4.3, I think, at the combine. But yeah, I think it's those 2 battling it out with Mark Robinson for that final spot. I don't think they'll keep 5 inside guys.
Yep, and sorry, happy trails to Quincy Roche. He came back. We were all excited about getting him back, drafted originally by the Steelers, and now it's you're behind guys.
That's Nick Herbig.
Yeah, I mean Nick Herbig, you're behind guys that are making millions of dollars, including Marcus Golden, who's now the elder statesman and kind of a backup. I kind of wonder, he's been very quiet. But I don't think you would give him the axe and then just have only a rookie Herbig as
he's been given a lot of veteran days off, I've noticed, which shows me that the coaching staff is just like, we signed you, Marcus Golden, to be a guy who pins his ears back and just rushes the passer on certain downs. So I think they know what they're getting with Golden, and he doesn't have to like show them. Like, he's practicing, but he gets a lot of veteran days off, and he has been quiet. I have been happy to see the way he's embraced a slight leadership role, though, because he's really been in Nick Herbig's ear a lot and offering him advice. And there's clips you can see of the sideline from the Tampa Bay game where he's super excited for Nick after he makes his 2 sacks. So maybe it was just his first one at that point. So that doesn't seem like a guy who thinks his position is in jeopardy. I think he knows he's the third guy, and him, TJ, and Highsmith together, they all are kind of taking it as their responsibility to be like, okay, it's us three, and then as long as Nick can, get it, he can come in and help too. And after Nick Herbig got his 2 sacks, he was doing like a post-game interview in the locker room, and I swear, if you go back and find it and play it, I think he was gonna cry. Like, he was very emotional about how nice and open and hopeful TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Marcus Golden have been to him. TJ, obviously being a Wisconsin grad as well, they go back years, and he's always been in communication with him, and he follows him around like a lost puppy. Like, everybody knows about his love affair with TJ.
Yeah.
But Highsmith and Golden as well are trying to make sure that Herbig's ready. They see what he has, and I'll tell you this too: that Herbig is looking impressive because he got 2 sacks. But think back to guys like Tuzar Skipper, and there's other examples where they put up 2 to 3 sack games, and they captured the hearts of fans, but media members and people that like had a better pulse on the team were like, this guy's still probably not going to make the team. But with Herbig, it's like, no, this guy was one of the studs of preseason week 1. That's how you know they were good sacks, and he's showing a lot of potential. And I think that'll be it for the edge rusher room. You don't have much more room. You can't keep a 5th guy, not really. And I don't know who would even be worthy of it, and except DeMarvin Leal is like a tweener. So DeMarvin Leal he's got an asterisk. He could be the 5th edge rusher, I suppose, but he also needs to be included in the defensive line group. So I guess that's where you get into the whole, like, okay, you're talking about DeMarvin Leal as the 5th edge rusher, but you also have him competing for a spot on the D line. He's safe, DeMarvin Leal. But, like, is there room for him? Like, when you consider Fiocco and Watts on the defensive line?
Yeah,
that's what makes it harder for guys like that, right? Where they've both been having good camps and getting in with the first team offense, but Leal's safe, and there has to be a spot for him. So whereas it isn't the most common thing to keep 5 edge rushers, they're going to keep 5 in a sense with Leal having that designation of edge / defensive line.
Yep. I agree. Jumping to the secondary real quick. This kind of makes it a little easier. Maybe the Corey Trice injury being out for the year, one less body that you have to account for in all of these calculations that we're making. Unfortunately to say that, but now, well, let's see. You've got Patrick Peterson, Joey Porter Jr., you've got Levi Wallace. That's your top 3 there. Then you got like James Pierre, and then who else? We've been talking a lot, and he's popped up in conversations online like Steelers Nation Radio, and these guys are talking about him, like, Dale Lawley, Matt Williamson, Craig Wolfley, Luke
Elijah
Barku.
Riley.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about the safeties yet. I think Riley and Robinson end up being
playing nickel.
Yeah, I know. I heard that. Yeah, like slot, but they still think that Chandon Sullivan's probably won this group, and it's just, I don't know, they keep more than 5 corners, and then you have 5 safeties because you have Minka, DeMonte Casey, Keanu Neal, Trey Norwood, Miles Killebrew, your special teams guy. I mean, he's expendable. That's a guy that could be on the hot seat as well as Norwood, but would you expend them for Riley or Robinson? I see those guys more as practice squad. The same with Luke Barku, unless he like outright just wins this job over like a James Pierre, if he's like out there. So keep an eye on this one with these next 2 games. If Barku's out there on like special teams, like on the coverage units, like he could steal a job here right out from under James Pierre. James Pierre is like a veteran, but James Pierre is just so hot and cold. He makes like a great play, then he makes like a not so great play. There isn't like a real consistency, I feel, to his game. So I think that's another guy I would have definitely on the hot seat, and a couple other names there that you might have as the bubble roster players.
Yeah, you gave me a lot there to chew on, and I the secondary I feel actually highly intrigued about, and it's mainly because, well, I'll start with Trey Norwood. Trey Norwood, I believe, may actually be on the street at the end of preseason because I like what Trey Norwood provides, and I like what we've seen from him in his short career as a 7th round pick, but he has not been practicing or playing a whole lot. He's not exactly high up enough on the depth chart to kind of let that happen for too long. And it's raised my eyebrow because Minka Casey, and Keanu Neal are all safe, assumably.
Yeah.
They're your starting three. They're all rotating in heavily with the ones, whether Minka's always out there and they decide whoever's going there between Neal and Casey.
Listed as co-starters there too on the depth chart, which is telling.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So they expect all three to play a lot, which most of us knew. And then I actually think Robinson has done better than Trey Norwood this camp and kind of made a name for himself going in with the first team as well. Like, granted, Minka and Casey and Neal all have missed time at certain points during this camp, but Robinson has stepped to the plate and he's hit some doubles. I'm not saying he's hitting any home runs yet, but I think he's done enough for the coaches to kind of feel comfortable being like, this guy has done better than Norwood. So
yeah,
three safeties are safe, and I think they'll keep one of the two of them, maybe, because Miles Killebrew is the real kicker, right? Miles Killebrew is a defensive or a special teams demon, the pump block god. I think he's had 3 or 4 since joining the Steelers, but he offers you nothing on defense. So similar to Miles Boykin, he's kind of, is he safe or is he not? It depends how much the Steelers value special teams. I personally think if it were down to Minka, Casey, and Neal, and then you only want to keep one of the three, Kenny Robinson, Trey Norwood, or Miles Killebrew, I guess gun to my head, give me Killebrew for a special teams value.
Yeah.
Corner, sorry.
I said, yeah, I agree with you.
100%. Cool. Corner, top 3 spots, Peterson, Porter, Wallace. That's all locked in there. And then I feel like similar to what I was saying earlier, I think I said this about, who was it? I mentioned that, Anthony McFarland being in no man's land as RB3. It's kind of just him and nobody else. That's kind of James Pierre. I don't know who else is cornerback 4. I really don't. And most teams don't keep less than 3. Pierre has had up and down moments at camp, but he has had more up than down, I believe. And he has gotten opportunities in the past to start. Hasn't done great, but he's performed serviceable at times. As a 4th cornerback, it's kind of what you want. And he played special teams last year. I think he's got the 4th spot pretty much, I don't want to say locked up, but it's his to lose as far as 4th cornerback designation. And then you have Alexander and Riley battling out for a spot. That's a 2 dogs, 1 bone scenario, because I think there's not room on this roster for Alexander and Riley. Special teams aside, I think it'll be whoever comes out as the top nickel. It seems to be those 2 that are always in with first team, whether it's Shandon Sullivan, the free agent signing from the Vikings, or Elijah Riley, the guy the Steelers signed last year and was on practice squad and the active roster here and there. They both have been getting a lot of first-team reps. It seems like Elijah Riley has been doing better, but Shandon Sullivan receives the benefit of the doubt as being the guy who he started or gotten severe playing time over the past 3 years of his career. Elijah Riley hasn't. Shandon Sullivan has a proven track record. Elijah Riley doesn't. But they're having a good battle. So between the 3 safeties, 4 if you keep Miles Killebrew, and then 3 corners, and then Pierre being the 4th, that's what? That's 4 plus 4 is 8. You got 8 defensive backs with 4 safeties, 4 corners, and then one of the nickels is 9. That's 9 defensive backs right there. So do you want to have 10? If you have 10, you can keep a guy like Trey Norwood, Kenny Robinson, or one of the losers of the nickel spot. Otherwise, that's going to be how it falls out, I think.
Yeah, I'm totally there with you. I think we're up against it. I think we already got kind of the worst take maybe with the quarterback controversy or competition.
Oh, that's the winner.
Yeah,
that's the winner. That and George Pickens isn't being impressive because he can't separate.
That was pretty bad too, but I don't
want
to
get me
pick up the
started.
extra
Don't get me started.
Only go routes, dude. He didn't even run a freaking go. He was in the slot. He wasn't even running a go route on the touchdown in that first game. That's just ridiculous.
In my day, they just called that getting mossed.
Yeah, and that's what he did. Oh, that looks so good. My dude, looking forward to some more football this weekend. Appreciate you. Thanks for joining us as usual. Or somewhat usual. We're seeing you around. You're becoming a regular again, so this is a good thing.
It says usual, dude. Sorry I enjoyed my summer. Sorry there isn't football news every week. I'm here. I'm a regular. I'm a co-host.
Yeah, I just did the last show in a hotel room. Like, I wasn't even in the same time zone. So
working the long hours, people.
Out there. Yes, putting in the man hours. We put liquid paper on a bee and
rubber gloves.
Yes. Investing in black leather gloves. My dude, hey, everyone out there, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating, review, and don't go trolling. We appreciate you wherever you're watching or listening from. My name is Joe. His name is Zach, aka Flash. Until next time, we'll talk about the photo he has over his shoulder off of CBS. It's on the other side. Yeah, they caught you with the Apex jacket that I'm so jealous of.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Not a weatherman.
Yeah. But until next time, folks, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.